In January of 1996, a fresh sitcom called Moesha graced television screens across America, bringing with it the warmth of a close-knit Los Angeles family, the Mitchells, and a lively cast of supporting characters. At the center was Moesha Mitchell herself, played by the radiant Brandy Norwood. For 6 seasons, viewers watched Moesha tackle everything from the usual teenage dramas such as friendship troubles, romantic entanglements, and curfews, to much heavier issues like racial identity and social responsibility. Despite its comedic tone, the show took pride in weaving sincere lessons through episodes, lending it a deeper resonance with fans. But behind the laughter and beyond the final wrap party in 2001, and tragedy would eventually come to haunt many of the actors and cameo performers who once filled the Mitchells' living room with chatter and fun. Brandy Norwood, the vibrant performer who gave life to Moesha, spent her post-sitcom years juggling multiple artistic pursuits. She continued releasing chart-topping R&B albums, performed on Broadway for a stint, and even dabbled in producing. However, she found it increasingly difficult to separate the real Brandy from the public's perception of Moesha, the ever-optimistic high school girl. Determined to prove her versatility, she accepted a grueling schedule of live concerts and TV guest spots. One fateful night in 2018, while backstage after a particularly energetic performance, Brandy collapsed without warning. She was rushed to the hospital, but doctors soon discovered a massive cerebral aneurysm that had ruptured with no prior symptoms. Within hours, she was gone. William Allen Young, known to millions as Frank Mitchell, had portrayed Moesha's caring but firm father. Tall, soft-spoken, yet unwavering in moral convictions, Frank reflected many viewers' own fathers or father figures, projecting not only authority but also genuine love. William continued to work steadily in television, often portraying distinguished professionals, a professor here, a judge there, roles that matched his gentle fatherly presence. Off-camera, he remained just as caring, regularly calling up younger co-stars to check on their well-being and encouraging them to chase new opportunities. Then, in 2021, William caught what seemed like a run-of-the-mill cold that escalated into full-blown pneumonia. Because of his otherwise robust health, no one expected it to become life-threatening. Yet doctors watched in dismay as his condition nosedived. Within just a handful of days, complications overtook him. Word of William's passing spread quickly, and castmates described feeling as if they had lost an actual paternal mentor. Cheryl Lee Ralph had stepped into the role of Dee Moesha's stepmother as a gentle yet firm guiding force. She balanced out Frank's stern nature with warmth and an understanding ear, often acting as the bridge between Moesha and her father whenever tension simmered. In reality, Cheryl was equally graceful. She advocated for women's rights and volunteered her time with various philanthropic endeavors. She cherished the love she received from fans who saw her as a new kind of maternal figure on television, one who refused to be reduced to cliches. In 2022, Cheryl's once private battle with breast cancer reached a stage she could no longer hide. Despite attempts at chemotherapy and surgeries, the cancer had already spread aggressively. As she lay in a hospice bed, her family close by, those who knew her best remembered that regal composure which had been on display since her earliest Broadway days. Even near the end, she remained gracious, insisting that her visitors find reasons to laugh, to celebrate life, and to keep faith in the future. When the news of her passing became public, it seemed that an entire generation grieved at once. Viewers remembered her not just as Dee, but as a dignified presence that suggested a deeper compassion in a complex world. Countess Vaughn contributed immeasurably to Moesha's comedic dynamic, playing the irrepressible Kim Parker, Moesha's best friend since childhood. Kim's comedic timing and over-the-top personality created a kind of lovable chaos that made fans root for her in every episode. Later, Countess carried her talents to the spin-off The Parkers, garnering even more laughs and a new legion of followers. Beneath the laughter, though, Countess fought a long-standing war with body image and diabetes. In 2016, her health had declined after recurring issues with high blood sugar, hospital stays, and the stress of a lifestyle still tied to show business. One June morning, her close relatives found her unconscious at home. She had slipped into diabetic ketoacidosis and never regained consciousness. Marcus T. Paulk, Little Miles Mitchell, grew up before viewers' eyes. The mischief in Miles's grin, paired with his knack for pranks, lent the show a boyish energy. Despite being the youngest Mitchell, he was never overshadowed by his older sister or by the many colorful adults in their orbit. After the final season of Moesha, Marcus tried to navigate the difficult transition from child actor to adult roles. Typecasting haunted him and auditions grew sparse. He ended up gravitating toward music production, spending long hours in small independent studios that dotted the fringes of Los Angeles. Yet he always loved to drive, finding solace on wide-open highways where he could reflect on a future not pinned solely on his Moesha stardom. In 2025, that love for the open road became his downfall. One late night, as he was returning from a session in San Diego, his vehicle veered off a steep embankment. The result was a catastrophic accident. Paramedics pronounced him dead at the scene. Shar Jackson as Niecy Jackson brought attitude and comedic flair to Moesha's tight-knit friend group. With her trademark sense of style and cheeky commentary, Niecy could either amp up the drama or diffuse it with a witty remark. Shar, the actress behind the role, found moderate success later in reality TV and hosting gigs, though she confessed in interviews that the public still called her Niecy, as if she remained forever locked in that role. But life took a harsh turn in 2020. Neighbors recounted how Shar had seemed in great spirits earlier that day, mentioning a trip she planned. By evening, she had suffered a severe stroke in her home. By the time paramedics arrived, there was little they could do. The passing of such a vibrant figure, one who danced and joked her way through interviews, felt like another cruel reminder that tomorrow is never guaranteed. Hakeem Campbell, performed by Lamont Bentley, was that devoted friend who always seemed to be rummaging in Moesha's kitchen. In real life, Lamont embodied a gentleness that made him the unspoken glue among the younger castmates. Though 2017 spelled the end for him, triggered by a sudden heart attack connected to a congenital cardiac issue no one realized he had. He spent his last days in an ICU ward, never regaining consciousness to say goodbye. For fans, Hakeem had been family. He was the boy down the street who came over for dinner, who joked around with Frank Mitchell, and who always seemed to crave maternal guidance. Meanwhile, Yvette Wilson, the inimitable Andel Wilkerson, ran the Den Diner with a motherly sternness wrapped in comedic flair. Off-screen, Yvette was known for her philanthropic nature and her willingness to offer advice to younger cast members grappling with sudden fame. In 2019, she was suffering severe renal complications. Extended hospital stays and exhausting dialysis sessions weighed on her soul. Eventually, her kidneys gave up. Ray J, stepping in later seasons to portray Dorian Long, added an air of rebelliousness to Moesha's dynamic. A musician at heart, he saw Moesha as a springboard to broaden his entertainment reach. Yet in 2023, as he was preparing a comeback album, Ray J reportedly contracted a rare respiratory illness. Within weeks, he was in an induced coma, his lungs failing beyond medical repair. Fans who grew up idolizing his swagger remembered the arc that saw Dorian searching for acceptance in the Mitchell household, and how Ray J's real-life persona echoed that same drive to prove himself. Suddenly, that drive was extinguished, leaving behind an incomplete track list and a swirl of what-ifs. Fredro Starr, cast as Q, the confident boyfriend with hip-hop flair, had originally broken into the scene as part of the rap group Onyx. Acting in Moesha was a chance to blend his passions, rapping between scenes and offering edgy humor that set Q apart from the more conventional teen characters. In 2015, Fredro takes a dark turn when a catastrophic fire broke out in his apartment building around midnight. Firefighters arrived to an inferno that had spread too quickly. Trapped in his unit, Fredro succumbed to smoke inhalation. Dorian Wilson, known for cameo appearances on Moesha as the affable Professor Ogilvy, had comedic chops that also endeared him to viewers of other sitcoms in the late 1990s and early 2000s. He continued forging a path in comedy, hosting stand-up showcases and occasionally landing bit parts in TV dramas. By 2021, however, he suffered a sudden stroke at home after a routine evening spent watching old comedic reels. Medical intervention arrived too late. The circles of comics who had known him were stunned, describing him as a mentor who believed in giving newcomers a chance on stage. Monique, though mostly known for her stand-up and other television successes, briefly popped up in Moesha, leaving behind an impression of a powerful woman whose humor always shone through. She had a commanding voice that turned heads wherever she went. In 2018, Monique suffered a sudden cardiac arrest in her sleep, never waking to see another day. She had seemed healthy, or at least healthy enough to keep audiences roaring with laughter. The abruptness of her passing stirred a wave of unease. If someone so spirited could vanish overnight, what hope did anyone else have against the silent fragility of human life? Bernie Mac, an unforgettable name in comedy, also graced Moesha with his presence on special guest appearances. Though in reality Bernie died in 2008, he is battling a severe respiratory condition that culminated in 2010. Fans recalled his boisterous comedic style, that signature wide-eyed look, and a fearlessness in challenging comedic norms. Kim Whitley left audiences in stitches with her comedic cameo, her spontaneous wisecracks carving a small but memorable nook in Moesha lore. She continued to appear in various comedic ventures, occasionally stepping behind the camera to produce. In 2019, Kim was felled by a sudden stroke that robbed her of speech. Just days later, she passed quietly in an ICU ward. Merlin Santana, Alexis Fields, Sherry Headley, and Clifton Powell each found brief or recurring roles within Moesha's storyline. Merlin, a swift and uncontrollable infection that robbed him of life in 2015. Alexis, a calamitous traffic accident in 2018 that ended her attempts to revive her acting career. Sherry, a fatal stroke in 2019 that occurred at home, discovered by a worried relative. And Clifton, a private battle with cancer culminating in 2023 that left family and friends grappling with guilt for not realizing how advanced his illness had become. Lark Voorhees, a talented actress best known elsewhere, but also briefly woven into Moesha's storyline, vanished in 2022. All that was known is that she was discovered in her apartment with no official explanation. Lil Zane, an emerging rapper who cameoed in a musical capacity, was on the verge of a mini comeback in 2021 when he died in a tragic motorcycle accident. Tia and Tamara Mowry, rumored to appear in a special episode featuring a high school event crossover, encountered freak accidents just months apart in 2024. One in a plane crash, the other in an oddly similar fiasco involving an accidental structural collapse at a studio set. Mary J. Blige, Tyrese, and even the late Kobe Bryant had cameo moments in Moesha's run. Mary succumbing to an infection in 2023, Tyrese locked in a battle with a rare neurological disorder until 2026, and Kobe lost to a plane crash in 2018. Snoop Dogg lent his iconic presence to a cameo as well. In 2024, pneumonia spiraled into respiratory failure. Jermaine Dupri, who swung by Moesha for a cameo, had an unexpected stroke in 2025, leaving the music world in shock. Finally, Jordan Ellis, barely known beyond the show's internal rosters. He was a background extra, typically glimpsed loitering by lockers or in corners of Moesha's living room scenes. In 2002, he died suddenly from an undiagnosed heart condition that triggered a fatal episode at the small apartment he rented near the studio. Only after his passing did cast members realize they had never truly gotten to know him. He had existed quietly in the background, a silent witness to the comedic highs and subtle tensions that formed Moesha's pulse. Which of these tragedies resonates with you the most, and do you have a favorite Moesha memory that now feels even more poignant? Let us know in the comments, and be sure to subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden stories behind classic TV gems. They remind us how precious and unpredictable real life can be, both on screen and off.